I would always start by encouraging a parent to do a few things. The first is to pay very close attention to what their child is doing.
So, Andrew, a lot of parents may have heard about this thing called attachment parenting. How would you describe to a parent what that is, what it entails from them as a parent, and why that's important?
Yes, the way that I understand attachment or attachment parenting is that attachment is essentially a child's, infant's, baby's natural drive to connect with and bond with their parents, their caregivers. And it's something that, of course, is very important and really has a significant impact on every aspect of a child's subsequent development and on the parent-child relationship.
And what would a parent, do you think, what would they need to do? What sort of approach would they need to take in order to achieve this?
That's really the most important question, isn't it? And of course, the question that every parent would have is how can I show up every day? How can I interact every day, communicate every day with my child in a way that supports or that strengthens this bond? The first thing I would say is, and this is the work that I have learned over the last 30 years is most important and most significant, really supporting parents to be able to do exactly this, really to bond closely with their child. And what I've learned is most important is parents really learning, if they are not already sort of naturally doing it, is how to really tune into a child's, what we would call, initiatives, right? A baby or a young child has a particular thought, idea, feeling that sort of bubbles up from inside of them, and they then express that through their facial expressions, sounds, their eyes, whatever it might be. And essentially, it's the job of the parent or the caregiver to really notice and receive and confirm that initiative. And sometimes that's very easy for parents, and parents do that, and parents are very tuned in and can pick up those signals. And other times, understandably, parents may either miss or misinterpret those cues, those signals, those initiatives from their child. And the reason why that's so important is because, very much like all of us later in life, when let's say I have a thought or a feeling or an idea that I want to express to you, Guy, in this conversation. And if I do that by either saying something, saying a word, making a sound, having a particular facial expression, you are then picking up or receiving that and letting me know in some way that you've received my initiative. And being able to do this back and forth really forms trust between the two of us. When I say something, if I say, Guy, I'm happy to be, on this call with you today, right? If I say something like that and you say back to me, Andrew, you're very happy to be on this call with me today, my experience is Guy is with me. Guy
Good.
understands what I'm thinking and feeling. Guy heard me. What I have to share is very important to Guy. He's really listening. He's really tuned in. And because I have that experience, then I build up more trust. And understandably, the message I've gotten from you is you value what I have to say or what I have to think or what I'm feeling. And essentially, that's exactly what we're talking about. And through those experiences, you and I develop more understanding, more trust, and more of a bond with one another over time. It's the same thing with parents and children, except that, of course, when children are very young, there's sometimes sending signals or taking initiatives that are not always so clear. They're not saying a sentence or using words. And so the challenge for parents is really learning how to tune in and read and pick up and confirm their children's initiatives.
So
Does that
that's,
make sense?
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm thinking that for parents of autistic children, that's more of a challenge because the child and if the parent's not autistic, the child and the parent will have different communication preferences and could easily misunderstand each other. So a child might communicate, I don't know, they might say something. It might seem to the parent that, you know, it was a throwaway comment or something just a little bit strange. But for the child, they're expressing something and they're not getting it reflected back, not because the parent doesn't want to, but because the parent doesn't understand what it is. And the same could happen the other way around. So that whole process that you described is a brilliant one for building rapport, you know, for building that attachment, which will give the child a sense of safety, a sense of just security, so that they can then take care of their own development, because it's within us. If our environment is safe, we're going to bring forward the best in ourselves. How would you help, or what would you say to a parent of an autistic child who wasn't fully sure that they could understand what their child's needs were?
That's a wonderful question. I would always start by encouraging a parent to do a few things. The first is to pay very close attention to what their child is doing in terms of actions and sounds, right? So really tune in, which sometimes is I'll use the expression, is much easier said than done. And this is the case for all of us as adults. Most of us are very eager to have our own thoughts, ideas, initiatives received by another person. And sometimes what we have a harder time doing is holding back our own ideas and thoughts, initiatives, to allow room and space for another person to bring their own.
Yeah.
And so sometimes parents are so excited about and are trying so hard to connect with their child and get their child to respond and connect with them, that parents end up doing all of the initiating, and the child ends up not having as much room and space to bring their own ideas or their own feelings or initiatives to the table. So it would be like both of us, for example, in this conversation, I'm doing all of the talking and I'm not allowing any room or space. I'm not pausing and inviting and encouraging you to bring your own ideas or thoughts or reactions into the conversation. And that happens with adults all the time. But again, with parents and very young children, this can very easily happen because parents are trying so hard. They want so much to connect with their child. But when they then push and try and do all of the initiating, right? Hi, honey, you see mommy's face. Oh, mommy's so happy, or daddy's so happy to be with you. Da, da, da. If I'm, as a parent, doing all of that talking, sometimes my child doesn't have any room
Yeah.
to bring their own sounds or initiatives into the interaction. That can happen very often. So again, a step one is always really encouraging parents to have just a few moments of the day, or of time with their child, to really tune in and pay attention to what their child is doing.
So that's really interesting. So it's like, even if there's not that natural, easy understanding because of the different communication styles, we can compensate for that by just tuning in and listening and learning step by step, learning a little bit more. And then over time, achieving that attachment relationship is much more of an achievement, because we've worked so much harder for it. Um, and the child has a sense also, I guess, of there being an improvement, of there being a sort of continual optimization of their relationship with their parent. I found, as a parent myself, one thing that's been really helpful in going in that sort of direction is changing the way I think of my function as a father. So many parents might think, and I guess we used to think, that our job was to ensure that certain behavior is achieved, and certain things are done in certain ways, and the child learns this skill or whatever, and and to impose discipline in the sense of, boundaries and things like this. But the problem with that is that, if we do that, we lose our main function as a parent, which is to really understand and provide that safe environment. And that, when I say environment, I'm not only talking about the physical, I mean the relationship with the parents and the model of a relationship that we provide for them. We're losing that, and that's the central thing, because if we can get that right, if we can work on that, then everything else falls into place. Discipline happens very naturally because trust is there. Skills happen very naturally in the way that they're meant to, because each child might manifest their skills in different ways, but they happen very naturally and as best they can because the child feels safe to be able to contribute to their own development. Does that make sense as an approach?
Absolutely, Guy. I think you're spot on. That what you described is, at least the way I think about it sometimes, and what I say to parents a lot, is less is more. And what I mean by that is, sometimes, understandably, as parents, we're so eager to kind of direct a child in a certain way, to get them to communicate or talk in a certain way. If maybe a child hasn't yet learned how to use language, so there's a part of us as adults, and certainly as parents or as professionals, that's in this mode of trying to guide and teach and essentially sort of challenge lovingly, right, a child to keep learning and growing and developing. And sometimes what we miss is what you were, I think, spotlighting, that the child actually, every child has their own capacity to learn and grow and develop. That is innate. That exists within them, that they have this drive to grow and learn and communicate and interact and bond and attach. And what I continue to learn as a professional is that the harder I'm working, the harder I'm trying sometimes to get a child to do particular things, and the harder parents work to try to get their child to develop in certain ways, sometimes the more a child retreats from interactions, because the child learns quickly that their ideas, their own initiative is not as important as the parents. And so essentially what happens is parents then get into a connection with their child where they're doing a lot of directing and sort of guiding and sometimes pushing and controlling the child to move in certain directions. And the child becomes more and more passive.